The de Havilland DH.98 Mosquito. Ancestry. In 1934, de Havilland Aircraft Company Limited decided to construct a new airplane to compete in the England-Australia air race. In only 10 months, the firm designed and built 3 DH-88 Comet racers. Pilots raced all 3 against 64 entrants from 13 countries. A Comet won the 11,000-mile race in 71 hours, and another finished 4th, but the 3rd Comet dropped out because of engine trouble. An advanced plywood skin formed the wing and fuselage of these twin-engine airplanes, and de Havilland used the same technology to build future Mosquito wings. Subscribe to our channel and get notification when we release new episodes. A more direct ancestor to the DH-98 Mosquito was the de Havilland DH-91 Albatross air transport. After much official delay, de Havilland built 7 of these 4-engine airliners, and Imperial Airways bought 5 and began to fly them on scheduled routes in December 1938. World War II completely overshadowed the world-class speed and economical performance of the Albatross, but its impact on Mosquito development was profound. On September 8, 1936, the British Air Ministry issued a specification calling for a twin-engine medium bomber capable of carrying a bomb load of 3,000 pounds for 3,000 miles, with a maximum speed of 275 miles per hour at 15,000 feet. A maximum bomb load of 8,000 pounds that could be carried over shorter ranges was also specified. Based on his experience with the Albatross, Geoffrey de Havilland believed that a bomber with a good aerodynamic design and smooth minimal skin area would exceed the specification. Furthermore, adapting the Albatross principles could save time. The Air Ministry showed little interest and instead asked de Havilland to build wings for other bombers as a subcontractor. De Havilland's proposed design was too radical for the ministry, which wanted a heavily armed multi-purpose aircraft combining medium bomber, reconnaissance, and general roles, and that was also capable of carrying torpedoes. With the outbreak of war, the ministry became more receptive, but was still skeptical about an unarmed bomber. It was thought that the Germans would produce fighters that were faster than had been expected. Nonetheless, Geoffrey de Havilland said, "We believe that we could produce a twin-engine bomber which would have a performance so outstanding that little defensive equipment would be needed." Features. Despite their initial designs receiving an unfavorable reception, de Havilland persevered. Eventually, and after a number of further impressive submissions, the ministry warmed to the concept, and a draft requirement was raised for a high-speed light reconnaissance bomber capable of over 400 miles per hour. The first example was built by hand in total secrecy, with company money on the grounds of Salisbury Hall, a mansion house not far from the de Havilland production facility at Hatfield, Hertfordshire. First flown on November 25, 1940 by Chief Test Pilot Geoffrey de Havilland Jr., the bright yellow machine was sent to Boscombe Down in Wiltshire, where it was extensively tested. Initial impressions were entirely favorable. In performance trials, the plane exceeded even the manufacturer's expectations, achieving a level speed of 388 miles per hour at 22,000 feet during one test flight. Following a demonstration to Lord Beaverbrook and other senior government ministers at Langley on December 29th, an order for 150 aircraft was given to de Havilland. The Mosquito is unique among World War II fighters because it is made primarily of wood, not metal. To cover the mainplane structure and add strength, de Havilland woodworkers built 2 top mainplane skins and 1 bottom skin using birch plywood. The top skins had to carry the heaviest load, so the designers also beefed them up with birch or Douglas fir stringers cut into fine strips and glued and screwed between the 2 skins. The bottom skin was also reinforced with stringers. Together, the top and bottom skins multiplied the strength of the internal spars and ribs. A Mosquito mainplane could withstand rigorous combat maneuvering at high G-loads, when the aircraft often carried thousands of additional pounds of fuel and weapons. To maintain strength, trim weight, and speed fabrication time, the entire mainplane and spar was finished as a single piece, wingtip to wingtip, with no break where the wing bisected the fuselage. A finished and painted mainplane was light and strong, with a smooth surface unblemished by drag-inducing nail or rivet heads. The most produced variant, designated the FB Mark VI, Fighter Bomber Mark VI, was powered by two Merlin Mark 23 or Mark 25 engines, driving three-bladed de Havilland hydromatic propellers. The typical fixed armament for an FB Mark VI was 4 Browning 303-inch machine guns and 4 20mm Hispano cannons, while the offensive load consisted of up to 2,000 pounds of bombs or 8 RP-3 unguided rockets. Known as the Wooden Wonder and the Timber Terror due to its all-wood frame, it also was nicknamed the Mossie by its crews. By the end of January 1942, contracts had been awarded for 1,378 Mosquitoes of all variants, including 20 T-3 trainers and 334 FB-6 bombers. Another 400 were to be built by de Havilland Canada. The Americans did not pursue a proposal for licensed production, the consensus arguing that the Lockheed P-38 Lightning could fulfill the same duties. Bombing raids. As a bomber, the Mosquito was fast enough to excel at precision attacks against heavily defended targets. Courageous crews often flew these raids at altitudes of 49 to 164 feet. Flying this type of raid in a single-engine airplane would border on suicide, but the Mosquito's twin Merlins doubled the crew's chances of surviving engine failure. Unlike Allied heavy and medium bomber crews, Mosquito men routinely operated in daylight at extremely low altitudes. They used this tactic to minimize exposure to anti-aircraft defenses and to ensure precise accuracy during bombing and strafing attacks. On January 30, 1943, 2 daylight missions to bomb Berlin were carried out using low-level daylight tactics. These attacks were timed to disrupt speeches by Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring, head of the Air Force, and Joseph Goebbels, the Third Reich's propaganda minister. The first raid in the morning comprised a flight of 3 Mosquitoes from the 105th Squadron, which attacked the main Berlin broadcasting station at 11 a.m., when Göring was due to address a parade commemorating the 10th anniversary of the Nazis being voted into power. The mission gave the lie to Göring's claim that such a mission was impossible and kept Göring off the air for more than an hour. A second flight of Mosquitoes from the 139th Squadron followed in the afternoon of the same day to attempt to interrupt a speech by Goebbels at the Sports Palace. However, Berlin's anti-aircraft defenses were on the alert, and a Mosquito flown by squadron leader DFW Darling DFC was shot down, killing both Darling and his navigator. Göring was enraged. 6 weeks later, he harangued aircraft manufacturers that he could go berserk when faced with the Mosquito. On April 11, 1944, after a request by Dutch resistance workers, 6 Mosquito FB-6s made a pinpoint daylight attack at rooftop height on the Kunsthal Kleikamp Art Gallery in The Hague, Netherlands, which was being used by the Gestapo to store the Dutch Central Population Registry. The first 2 aircraft dropped high explosive bombs to open up the building, the bombs going in through doors and windows. The other crews then dropped incendiary bombs, and the records were destroyed. Multiple uses. Mosquito bombers were soon an important aircraft within Pathfinder's operations. They became the main element of the Light Night Striking Force, and from early in 1943, they were used for target marking, particularly in the initial phases of the raid, when their pyrotechnics would be followed up by additions from the heavy Pathfinder bombers. In operations against shipping, Mosquitoes sank supply vessels and at least 10 German U-boats along the French and Norwegian coasts. Mosquito crewmen flew many other unique missions, including an unarmed scheduled airline service between Scotland and Sweden. This hazardous operation was subject to attack by German fighters and was done only by night. Like the bombers, de Havilland built sub-variants of the Mosquito adapted for day and night fighter operations. The plane's first air-to-air victory over a Dornier 217 twin-engine bomber was claimed by a Mosquito crew on May 29, 1942. By the end of the war, Mosquito night fighters had claimed approximately 600 enemy aircraft, among which were 68 single-engine Focke-Wulf FW-190s. From June 1944 to March 1945, Mosquito crews worked to defeat a menace hitherto unseen in warfare: mass attacks by low-flying robot bombs propelled by pulse jet engines, the German V-1. Mosquitoes downed about 600 of these buzz bombs, or vengeance weapons. Improved longer-range standard PR Mark I Mosquitoes were introduced in early 1942. These enabled more distant reconnaissance missions, to Poland, for example. Also, from around that date, there were searches and photographic evidence by the RAF Lichers Detachment concerning the German Scharnhorst-class battleships. And on January 16, 1942, this unit had a further success when a round-trip flight to Murmansk located the hiding place in a Norwegian fjord of the battleship Tirpitz. Mosquito served in the USSR on reconnaissance duties, operating from Soviet bases on the Kola Peninsula to monitor Luftwaffe activities in Norway. The U.S. 25th Bombardment Group, Reconnaissance, was constituted in the days after D-Day and activated at RAF Watton in August 1944 to carry out photographic and mapping missions over mainland Europe as Allied armies pushed east. In addition to photo reconnaissance missions, both for weather forecasting and target identifications, they employed their Mosquitoes as countermeasure dispensers and as scouts for the heavy bomber force. Post-war, the Mosquito was produced in so many modifications for so many missions that armament varied widely through the war and later, when it was used in the air forces of countries around the world, including production on the 3 continents where it was made. There were 42 marks or versions of the 7,781 Mosquitoes that were built. With the end of the war, production of the Mosquito continued, and surplus examples were exported to many nations around the world, re-equipping their air forces with the multirole bomber. Some Canadian-built Mosquitoes and spare engines were purchased by the Republic of China Air Force in 1947. A considerable number saw combat in 1947 to 1949 during the Civil War against Chinese Communist forces. Mosquitoes flying with the Israeli Air Force saw action during the 1956 Suez Crisis. The Belgian Air Force operated 24 Mosquito NF-30s from 1949 to 1956. Spartan Air Services of Ottawa, Ontario, acquired 12 ex-RAF Mosquitoes in 1955. These were modified by Derby Aviation for high-altitude aerial survey. After ferrying over the Atlantic, they operated commercially throughout the Americas until the mid-1960s. The last examples of de Havilland's Wonderplane rolled off the production lines in 1950. The last operational RAF Mosquitoes were the TT-35s, which were finally retired from No. 3 Civilian Anti-Aircraft Cooperation Unit in May 1963. If you like these types of videos, subscribe to our channel and get notification when we release new episodes. For more interesting military history content, check out our video library.